The story begins with a girl named Ciel. She was very young and beautiful, but despite her beauty, she worked as an ordinary maid. Another mountain girl shouted to Ciel, "Where is the tea?" Ciel was very confused. She completely forgot about the tea. The worker told her that she needed to bring the white tea that was in the pantry and that she should make sure that this tea was from Lorraine. Ciel gave the task for her to check the corridor, and she made tea, which she served for dinner. The girl did not come to her place. It was very troublesome to do this. After all, it was on this day that the emperor died, and for all the inhabitants it was a complete shock. Since Ciel was only a simple maid, she was never close to the Archduke. But the girl was 100% sure that he had his whole life ahead of him because he only became a summer boy this year. Ciel still couldn't believe it, that he died like that. Right in your office. The reason why Ciel, an ordinary maid, was able to predict the death of the Archduke is because this world. From the novella, Which Girl Read It in a Past Life, Ciel finally found this tea. It was lucky for her how likely it was that someone could end up in her favorite novel. Ciel lived in a large and beautiful room. This kingdom of Great Britain was one of the largest in the whole world. It's time for dinner. According to the rules, Ciel and the other maids could not cook with the leaders of the kingdom. For the girls, this food was very appetizing. Ciel told herself that she needed to calm down and collect herself. After all, she knew that the Archduke would die on this day. The Archduke calmly ate his food and drank alcohol. Saint Reina also had dinner. Everyone called her queen. Ciel looked at the holy Reina and was shocked. After all, she had a very peaceful expression on her face. She would never have thought that it was possible to eat so calmly when thinking about killing a person. Reina. This is the saint from the short story. A random box. She fell in love with the Archduke Queen when she was very young. But he didn't care about Reina, which is why her love remained unrequited. The decision to engage these children was made by both families long before their birth. But after Ferza became Archduke, he decided that he was obliged to spend more than 8 months on the field of residence. And so the girl's unrequited love turned into hatred. In the end, she gave preference to Prince Callan, Queen's cousin. Reina then realized that the Jess Cortez represented aid for the imperial family. Without thinking twice, she decided to kill the queen while continuing to talk with the main character, Callan. And today, the Archduke will be poisoned. Ciel thought that it would be very good if Reina changed her mind about adding poison to the queen. Reina began to talk about how the owner of the great estate, who was born to become a villain, did not justify the gossip surrounding him. Ferza decided to ask Reina again, because she said about that incident. Reina began to explain that if it weren't for the Archduke, she would be afraid to imagine what they managed to do to her. She recalled how Vienna Jarkis. The queen immediately replied that they had overestimated their capabilities after the queen's father's statement. He could not understand how they even thought of kidnapping the imperial saint. Reina replied that this was their essence. Reina continued to complain. She complained that now everyone is very careful when she is in the temple. Reina was sure that if Vina showed up there, they could stay with her. At this time, the waiter came up and began to pour them wine. Ray began to explain that this was Seratian Northern Mountain wine. Even if they didn't sell it, she was able to get this bottle of another wine. Reina said she prepared it for the queen's celebration, in honor of his safe return to war. Ciel watched this from the side. She immediately realized that this was the same poisonous wine that would kill the queen. Ferza raised this glass and said that he drinks this glass to Reina. Ciel is equal to the fact that he cannot drink it. One small sip and Ferza will go to the next world. Ciel could not resist and threw this glass out of the hands of the queen. Ferza and Reina were both shocked by this behavior. They didn't expect anyone to dare to do this. Ferza ordered his guards to protect Reina. Ferza thought that Ciel had betrayed him and wanted to kill him. Since this had already happened before, Ferza thought that Ciel was sent by the emperor as an assassin. Ciel said that she did not want to serve her master and die. The captain's girl has only one thing in mind: to become the head maid in the house of an influential family and live happily ever after. She couldn't let President Ferza hear. Ferza ordered Ciel to bring him wine. Ciel thought he was a terrible person. The girl asked herself to take a sip of wine. She wanted to drink wine instead of the queen, so that the monstrous poison that was used is called robot. If a person with a lot of magical power accidentally encounters it, then his heart will stop. But if an ordinary person like Ciel drinks it, then she will simply get a cold. There are other options. With a caution of 1%, you can suddenly grow old or become tiny like a fairy. But the chance of winning the lottery is not higher. It is very unlikely. The girl was sure that the lazy author had chosen the name at random and at the same time the side effects. Seal knows that after this she will be bedridden for some time, but with this act she will save the queen. And then, as gratitude, she hoped that Ferze would make the girl a senior maid. Ferze replied that she would die in any case, and not always, which is why she defends herself so much. Seal continued to ask him to give her some wine. The queen knelt down and took Seal by the chin. He said that he had nothing to be afraid of. He extended the glass to Seal to her mouth so that she could start drinking this wine. When Seal came to her place, she noticed that the knights began to watch her in an unusual way. Seal looked at her hands and could not understand what was happening, because her hands looked like the hands of a 5-6-year-old child. I took a closer look and noticed that the knights had become much larger than her. At that moment she understood everything. She realized that she had become a child. Her idea did not go according to plan. Seal considered herself and did not consider her an equal. How could she continue to work as a maid, because she was very small? Ferze could not think about his eyes. He asked his assistant if he had gone crazy. The assistant said that he is in healthcare because he sees it too. Ferze thought for a very long time what to do with Ciel. He ordered them to lock her up. The girl immediately began to be indignant. She believed that it would be dishonest because she had fulfilled what she promised. Ferze smiled. It was funny to him that the child intended to argue with him. Ciel began calling him different names. She considered him a very cruel person who was ready to break a swallow's paw. The queen was very shocked that he was called a moron. No one had ever been left like this before. Ciel didn't stop there. She started shouting that the emperor was many times more beautiful than the queen. He liked the servants more than the archduke. The queen slammed her foot hard and said that he knew that she had served him for a long time. Ciel was surprised that he knew her. The archduke, who would have passed by her, did not even bother to look as if the girl was not here. Ferze smiled and said that he remembers very well that girls like his reticence. Ciel at that moment remembered that the queen was hiding under the mask of a hero, although in fact she was a villain. Looking at his face, it seems that he is going to torture the girl for an eternity instead of finishing her off right away. If the girl had known that everything would turn out this way, she would have drunk that bottle in one sitting. The next day, Ciel woke up in an unfamiliar place. She could not understand where she was. The girl began to examine the details of the room. She noticed that the curtains were burgundy. It turned out to be a very soft blanket. At that moment, the queen approached her. He asked how long she was going to chill out and advised her to get up quickly. Ciel did not understand why he was here. The girl cared that he took care of her after she lost consciousness. Ciel began to think very hard and thought that this was a very strange situation. After all, Ferze said that the girl was asked to go to prison, but she was in the guest room. Ferze began to very much doubt that Ciel wanted to kill him because her actions were very suspicious. At this moment, the knights were watching this conversation. They asked him not to kill such a young child. Ferze decided that the girl's actions were too careless for a mercenary sent by the prince. She was no different from an ordinary maid. It turned out that the man was moved to the guest room not by order of the queen, but by decision of the palace. The butler's name was Alberto. The girl thought that Albert liked children. It appears that he and the other servants considered Ferze. Ciela the queen allowed her to live without fear for her well-being, because she saved his life. To the queen is not equivalent to reducing the number of people for salvation, because he never thanked. Ferze asked Ciel how he could express his gratitude. Ciel became more and more scary because of the gentle voice he asked. The girl began to think about what would be better to say so as not to make a mistake, so that it does not become a dismissal. She decided to be straightforward. Ciel started pointing and saying that she wanted the yellow round things that everyone dreams of. The girl began to manipulate and press for pity. She began to remind the queen that she risked her own life to save his life. The queen, after thinking for a while, said that she could take as much as she wanted. Ciel was in seventh heaven. The girl was surprised that he received it so quickly without any discussions. The girl was really looking forward to this. The next day, Ciel woke up in the morning and began to rub her eyes. She realized that living as a maid made her dream of living as a lady. The butler began to remind her that it was time for the girls to get up. The girl was surprised that the palace came to her personally. She was not always the same. Why is he so polite to her? This has never happened before. Ciel got up from the sofa and said in a sad voice that she had to go to work. She was very upset because she had no choice but to work for free. The girl began to list the tasks that she needed to complete for today. Today she planned a lot of work. Ciel saw two housekeepers in front of her. She recognized them immediately. It was Hannah and another colleague of hers. The butler began to teach the housekeeper that this was Miss Seal Basna. She came from the distant northern region. Seal was shocked. She did not understand what was happening here. Seal is not the same. Why the butler announced her by last name? Because only aristocratic women were announced by last name, and she is not an aristocrat. The housekeepers could not think that she was Basna. Seal thought that the housekeepers and the palace decided to play a joke on her. The girl decided to wave her hand and say hello to them. She noticed that they were behaving very strangely. Suddenly, Hannah fell to her knees. Seal immediately ran up to her and decided to ask what was happening. The other housekeepers started shouting that Miss Seal had cursed Han. She called her by name and could curse her. Seal immediately began to say that this was a complete lie, and this could not happen. Seal noticed that the housekeeper was working for her with great fear in her eyes. She asked the housekeeper not to look at her like that. After some time, Seal, while eating, began to think that happiness and bad luck are two sides of the same coin. The girl was convinced of this on her own. Happiness is being able to eat food that she couldn't afford before. Queen, according to rumors, I heard that the girl recently caused a big commotion. The whole kingdom was talking about Seal because the maid fainted because of her. The girl immediately began to make excuses and said that she did not want this, for everything to turn out this way. Ferza also began to make excuses and said that he did not want everything to turn out this way. After all, a lot of people died at his hands. The queen asked the girl how she would go to the Basna if everyone was so afraid. Seal said with an indignant face that she would not go anywhere. She wanted to be a maid for the rest of her life. Seal began the story about the Basna family. This is a ducal family from the Jibril Empire in which they live. House Basna was formed from mercenaries and various scum just 20 years ago. To be a noble means to respect and honor the empire, as well as other aristocrats. But Basna does no such thing. They don't notice any comments and look at everything from above. The imperial family, blessed by God, always stood out as strong people. But the Basna were real monsters. A former mercenary, the head of their family, now leads a Soviet life. Members of the Basna connect non-blood music, abilities. If a person is homeless, but at the same time has enormous magical power, he will instantly be accepted into the Basna family. And, using all possible means, such a person can earn his respect. The Basna are considered villains not only in the Jibril Empire, but throughout the world. The most terrifying family in the world. There are rumors that they can cut off your head even if you just meet their gaze. Ferza said that this does not surprise him at all, and he has heard this 32 times already. Seal began to worry very much. She thought that since he started talking about Basna, he was apparently planning to send her here, but the girl was not going to leave the estate. Seal is equal to the fact that you will not find such luxurious conditions and huge salaries anywhere else. Ciela is considered the only villain here is the queen, and in the Basna family there are already 3 such monsters. The girl began to pretend that she was crying because she really didn't want to go there. To the queen, to calm her down, he handed her a box of cookies. The girl did not expect such an act from him. These Schwelen cookies are incredibly expensive. Commoners like Seal will never be able to afford such a treat. The girl thanked him for the cookies. Perhaps this is a side effect of the poison, but as soon as she became little, she immediately fell in love with treats. The doctor told the girl that because of the poison, she might become weaker mentally. Ferza showed her the piece of paper on which the contract was written. He addressed her by name and was sure that she did not want her child's entire life. Seal was very surprised that he called her by name. This was very unexpected for the girl. She thought he only called his bride by name. The queen began to tell me that the girl drank because of him, was not a robot. It was a curse, much stronger and nastier than me. She is so dangerous that she can kill 10 people at once, regardless of whether they have magical abilities. Seal, I was wondering, if I'm so strong, why is she still alive? The queen replied that he was very surprised that the girl was still alive. He realized that if she hadn't stopped him now, he would be dead. The estate would pass into the hands of Reyna and Callan. Seal felt very sorry for the queen. She decided to hold him with warm words. The girl came closer to him and said that if her elder sister were an independent sorceress, she would help him. If I were a knight, this would be your support. At that moment, the girl realized that she had to get to know him better. The only thing she can do now as a maid is to prevent him from walking around in Ivan's clothes. The queen looked at Ciel and would never have believed that the maid would save his life. Ferza told the girl that he was going to reward her for saving her life. The girl immediately changed her opinion about the queen. She did not expect him to be so generous. The queen turned her back to the girl and said that they were magical, so he could not remove the curse. Seal replied that she had heard that the only way to destroy the spell. Ferza smiled and replied that the curse hangs with the death of the girl, but with her last breath, she will be the same. The queen came closer to the girl and said that he could lift the curse. Seal immediately had tears in her eyes. She thought that he was throwing her to be torn to pieces by monsters. The girl immediately had bad thoughts in her head, but she thought that he had sold her to the Basna family. He forgot how many times he had fought the duke's first son and how the head of their house had kidnapped Reina. Suddenly, the girl behind her heard a very familiar voice. Jacquard remained behind her. After everything he heard, he no longer wanted to remove the curse from this impudent child. Jacquard thought that she was too smart for a maid, and she didn't look like an ordinary maid. Seal began to examine his form. She noticed that he was one of the imperial knights. Imperial knights are those who are the envy of every country. They meet, and who they are, puts on a fake uniform without carrying a sword. Seal began to carefully examine his suit. He had jet black hair, a special uniform that not everyone wears. The girl began to think, and realized that only one knight dressed like this, the eldest son of the Basna family. The girl asked that it was not him. She had very bad impressions from this man. However, the chance that he will appear here is very small. The reason for such bad relations between Duke Baseni and the Archduke Sakarda. Almost every family in the electronic cards said that people who do not understand how society works are Basna for me. And Basna is not one of those who ignore such words. They are very vindictive. The current Duke, Giustia Basna, kidnapped the head of the family card. The fact that he was Ferza's father opened up a beginning in the family. The kidnapping of the main character, Reina, became another important reason. They decided to do this even under the threat of excommunication. Basna did this in order to take possession of rare magic crystals in the domain of electronic cards. There is a commotion in society. Immediately save the holy necessity. The imperial order took responsibility for saving the girl. Ferza, taking with him about 100 knights, fought with the Basna family, and he became the man who personally liberated Reina. To Ferza's surprise, Basna did not harm the girl. Basna creates villains. That's what everyone thought of them. There was even a rumor that a fierce war would soon begin between the two families, but the noise around the statement still died down. There was obviously a reason why Reina's return was quiet. The mercenary sent to the home Basna was raised with his arms and legs by the participants, and then forced to lick the shoes of Giustia Basna. Seeing this, Reina realized that it had not happened, and it was better not to be friends with Basna. Seal didn't think that an ordinary maid like her could be encrypted by the church. Seal stood opposite this man and greeted him as expected. The man, not paying attention to her, replied that he did not need greetings from those who were lower than him in status. The girl thought he was strange. Friend, they locked eyes. It was a very awkward moment, but the girl had to watch his movements, because she didn't trust him. She noticed that black is his real hair color. She must not let her guard down, but be constantly on the alert. She couldn't be more powerful. The guy asked her name. The girl replied that her name was Ciel. He wondered what she was doing here, and what she was doing in this place. The girl replied that she was a maid. She asked the guy in response, why ask what he knows so much? The guy said that she, besides my brothers, dared to look into his eyes. He decided that she would be fearless for a maid. The guy takes care that the mercenary works for the Archduke as a maid, or she's a double agent. Ciel felt ashamed to speak, but she replied that she was an ordinary maid. This surprised him greatly. The guy cared that she was too ordinary to become his sister. After all, she doesn't have Rogoff. She has 2 eyes and only 1 mouth, the guy reasoned. She was not large with a golem to be used as a slave. The guy could not understand that it was beneficial for him to take her with him, but the girl was completely against it. She believed that she was not an object for testing. For her, becoming an adopted daughter is humiliation. She would not agree to this for any money. At this moment, when she approached Ferza, he extended his hand and told her it was time to sleep. Ciel thought it was very strange, and first he glanced at her contract, and now he says that it is time for her to sleep. He began to do this so that no one except Ferzi and Sharkus would know what their further conversation was about. The girl thought about not falling asleep, but in the end she dozed off. She woke up from a strange noise. These were queens and sharkies. The girl pretends to have strong saliva. Sharkus wanted to take the seal from his kingdom in exchange for the mine. Ferza has heard many times that they are interested in this girl. Sharkus replied that not so much, to be honest. but the situation can change at any moment if we talk about the queen's sword and dragon bones. The queen replied that he could easily take the sword from him by killing him in a difficult battle. Sharkus smiled and replied that his speech sounded very conventional. One cannot speak rudely with such a beautiful face. Ferza said that he always knew that the Basna were always jealous of the Ekarts. Sharkus replied that it was the duke's desire for justice, not mine. He had no other choice but to listen to the order. To the girl, they were both villains. Although Sharkus insists on his innocence, the girl did not know which way she should go. And who is better, Sharkus or Queen? Ferzi signed the contract and understood why they made his father go through the challenge of horror. Sharkus replied that his father was always kind-hearted, but he could not do anything then, because he was only 12 years old at the time. Ferza wondered what kind of reaction they expected when they presented him with a stuffed animal of that devilish monster. He knew the story completely. The girl already knew what would happen in the future. A few years after saving her father, Ferza became a duke, instead of his despised parent. In the end, even the Basna, who behaved like wild dogs, calmed down. Most likely, it will seem strange for a 5-year-old not to lead, but they will forgive each other for everything that hurts. Sharkus said that in any case, this child knows about the current situation. Sharkus immediately realized that she was much braver than Reyna. The girl completely heard their conversation. She was very much afraid that she would be taken away by force. She could no longer pretend to sleep and open her eyes. In front of her, she saw Sharkus and Queen, who were looking at her. The girl wanted to listen to more of their conversation. She knew she had to follow Basna's instructions to lift the curse, but she wondered what was going on with the engagement. After Seal overheard what they were talking about, she could already understand why such measures were needed. The engagement to Reyna was broken. It is necessary to enter into an arranged marriage. They want to gain control of the Archduke since he became a threat to the imperial family. To do this, the queen needs to marry Lady Ninez, whose living blood flows from the imperial family. The agreement between Basna and Eckhart is very simple. Basna is removed from the seal curse, and in return, get the Karnan mine. This mine is the main source of income for the family cards. Magic ore is mined there, and also abyss stones that can be used against monsters. These stones were very useful for survival. The queen did not give the mine to the Basna even after their threat, and now she is just breaking up with her. It was a little incomprehensible for the girl. The girl would never have thought. Why does he help her, although he suffers such serious losses? The girl decided that this was the price of being accepted into the Basna clan. The curse that they can only lift becomes a very serious problem. After the spell is removed from this, the queen, by agreement, must give the mine. For the next 3 years, the girl behaves as the adopted daughter of Basna. She will become an archduchess after the curse is lifted, and after that, she will be an adult again. Queen, after this deal, you can avoid an engagement to Lady Ninez and repay the debt to this. Marrying a CA may be the best option for him. It's easier than looking for a suitable candidate. Due to imperial monogamy laws, Ferza will not be able to remarry, so the emperor does not raise the issue again. If within 3 years the curse is lifted, then CA can simply divorce him. The girl decided to sign a contract and live for a couple of years as a married couple, and then everyone will go their own way. CA wanted to tell the queen that she needed to find someone better than Basna, but the girl understood that he would do anything for her. It was very difficult for the queen to offer a deal to her sworn enemies, especially if they were monstrous villains. Ferza sat calmly on a chair opposite his enemy and offered him terms. The mine will transfer the property to him immediately upon expiration of the contract. Sharkus decided to clarify the question and asked if they would receive 30% of the berth before the due date. Ferza said that all conditions would be fulfilled if they fulfilled their conditions in return. CA unevenly. Why is she sitting on Sharkus's lap? It looks very scary for her. From the outside, it seemed that Sharkus had picked up a stray kitten. He stroked her every time she was ready to fall asleep. Sharkus doesn't even realize that this makes him seem even more frightening. Sharkus began to call C the younger sister. He was misunderstanding why she refused to be with him. The girl thought that she was something like an exotic animal for him. Ferzi approached Seal and said that I really hope that the girl understands that this is all being done for her sake. Seal thanked the queen. The girl was already very grateful that he did not neglect this, but few knew how the church would take it. Ferza replied that a lot of people were interested in Ciel, at what time she prevented the assassination attempt on the king. The girl laughed hysterically, because she wanted to remain invisible until the end. Sharkus began to touch her cheeks and said in a gentle voice that the baby would be in danger. That's why the Basna planned to adopt her. Sharkus smiled and said that Duke Justia already agreed. This would not be a big problem. Seal thought that this would be the biggest problem because she didn't want to go anywhere else. What the Duke hated most was waiting. Therefore, it is better for them to leave as soon as possible so as not to anger him. Sharkus raised Seal and said that it was time for them to go north. A week later, time flew by unnoticed, and now the girl stood in front of the carriage, having listened to Sharkus's warning. Sharkus has to do with the fact that firstly, the girl must unquestioningly obey the University of Justice. Secondly, Seal should never be left alone with Surem Bisanaya. The girl understood that all the advice was created in order to stay away from Sharkus's father and brother. For other people, Sharkus is as strange as his family. In fact, the girl realized that he was the calmest among the rest of the Basna. The Duke of Justice is cold-blooded and smart. Constant murders and crimes made him a very calculating person. Shuri is completely unpredictable and uncontrollable. Seal trusted only the queen. He's the only one she can trust. The girl never saw Ferza, who started all this from the very beginning. The queen always disappeared somewhere when the servants saw off the girl. Even the butler was gloomy about Seal leaving. And that's how the girl found herself alone with Sharkus in the same carriage. Seal still didn't trust him. The girl began to hum a very familiar song. Sharkus was interested in where the girl learned this song. Seal sweetly replied that she was on a city street. She continued to say that this song was learned at the orphanage. But Seal's father used to be a drunkard, forcing his own point to steal and beg. This was before Seal's rebirth. The girl remembered very old and evil times. Previously, the girl's name was Siyun. She was an orphan. Always overworked, she even died during a business trip. The girl woke up already in the body of a child from a poor family who lived in the slums. It was your favorite short story, a random box that a girl fell into. This girl had a father named Demian. After Seal Mystery gained enough money, she managed to escape from the slums, but in life she was waiting for new challenges. And when the girl was already dying, she was saved by the Ecart housekeeper, Madame Marion. The girl remembered almost nothing about that time because she was seriously wounded. Be that as it may, thanks to Madame Marion's recommendations, Seal got a job as a maid in the estate. After Sharkus heard her story about the girl's past life, he replied that such is life. Sharkus was shocked that this fearless, sassy brat would soon become one of the Bisenoi family, but no one could do anything about it. Soon, her brother would become a real monster. Sharkus smiled and said that one day she will be grateful that she has such a wonderful brother like him. Seal smiled back and thought that although he was young, he was still a narcissist. Sharkus told the girl that she should put things in order in her family relationships to avoid problems in the future. She must fix this and avoid the show of cheap familial kindness while she is in Basena. Sharkus looked at the girl very sternly. He said that this is their outlook on life. 2 days later, Sharkus asked the guy in the raincoat. He pulled him out of surveillance. The guy answered absolutely. The hallucinogen was well received by the temple dogs. It was the queen. He was distracted by the guards and dogs. They were worn all over the city. Sharkus asked not to call Surya that way. After all, his dear brother will be very upset if such a sound is similar. Seal woke up and saw the queen in front of her. She was shocked. She didn't expect to see him in that carriage. She noticed blood on his face. The girl was very worried that he was injured. The queen noticed Seal. He began to wipe the blood from his face and justify the look that no one killed. The girl raised that Ferze misinterpreted her gaze, but he was not injured. The girl realized that judging by their dialogue, one can only guess the essence. The girl began to assume that perhaps the royal family and the temple already know about the connection between the electronic card and the Bison family. She was very interested in what Callan and Reyna would accept now. Basena may not even realize that these two are living together. 4 days later, they came to the detriment of the Basena family. There was a very beautiful landscape there. The girl was very glad that they had arrived, because the road was very long and she was very tired. Sharkus went up to the girl and said that she needed to send it to the queen somewhere. The girl asked where he was going to send him. Sharkus wanted to quickly get rid of the queen, but Seal was categorically against this. Sharkus took Seal by the hands. He put the girl in front of him and, looking into her eyes, welcomed her to the north of his kingdom. Seal examined every detail, and this place turned out to be very gloomy for her. She hoped that this place would not become her grave. After a long journey, they came to the grand castle of the Basena family. Seal looked at everything with admiration. It was true that Duke Bazen likes art. Seal watched everything around. She thought that there would be a portrait of the head of the family, but she was mistaken. She initially took all the pictures of where he was in the castle and decided that he didn't like to show his face in plain sight. Sharkus approached Seal and said that the Duke was waiting for her in his office. Seal walked up to the Duke's door. The door was very large. The girl had a feeling that if she went in there now, no one would see her again. They both went into the room. Sharkus began to greet the star of the Basna, Duke Justia. They both immediately bowed to Justice so that he would not be angry with them. Justice thanked Sharkus for all his efforts. The girl was surprised that he had a pleasant voice. She was very interested to see what he looked like. Just noticed that the girl looked at him. She looked at him point blank and thought it was very impudent. Justia asked, "It happened who was with me, a mercenary raised by the Archduke." Seal did not show her face, but she was very afraid and cowardly with fear. Even with a glance, it is clear that Justice did not believe the girl in this story. But Seal didn't want to die so easily, at the hands of a villain, even a handsome one. Girl Take by the Heart and Beautiful Confession of Justice believed her story because it is the pure truth. Seal said that she would never let him down. She had not planned to delay getting the title, but in order to succeed in his work, she had no other choice to do so. Justice was a little angry because she only said his name without permission. The girl began to make excuses and said that she did not do it on purpose. This was due to a successful attempt to appease the person. The girl pulled the Sharkus and asked him to come to her defense. Sharkus began to ask the girl to forgive her for her rudeness. After all, she is just a step in growth. Justiu replied that he did not like soft and fragile people. The girl thought he meant that she was worthless. Just the same, that be that as it may, in order to survive in the Basna family, the girl must be cunning. Seal is not the same what he says. It will be great if he decides whether he scolds him or not. Justice ordered Sharkus to prepare everything for the official test. His fear was visible on Sharkus's face, but he could not argue with Justice and gave the opportunity to carry out all his orders. Sharkus immediately began to feel sorry for the girl. He took all the blame on himself. Seal walked into his arms, and instead of cursing, he was going to take pity on her. The girl looked at him and thought that he was like a personal carriage for her. Her opinion about the Sharkus changed. She thought they were so kind. Circassian said that it is not as good as it seems, and Seal will very much regret his words. The girl didn't understand what was wrong with him, because she said that everything was fine, but this guy continued to intimidate her. Seal is equal. If she had not agreed to the exam for the title of Duke, he would not have accepted her into the kingdom in his life. The fact that he, having received the mine, still wants to present it externally, this all speaks of his difficult character. The Duke is not one of those who will just silently do anything. The girls were wondering what he meant in the official test. Sharkus put Seal on the ground and let her build magnificent wires. Seal thought for a very long time what to do next, and she decided that the accused could charm the lawyer. But this was a very bad idea, because they could communicate with her like crazy, and she would definitely become a star in the afterlife. In addition, Merritt is harsh with his family and unacceptable tenderness, so the girls senselessly expect affection from him. Seal realized that she had no other choice how to pass the test at all costs. Sharkus noticed that the girl was reading books. He approached her and said that this is the history of the Basna family. Seal was shocked. She asked again that I need to learn all this in a day. Sharkus replied, "Of course not." "Hey, you need to learn this in 2 whole days." The girl was appreciated. She was shocked that this is a heartless family that does not care about values. Seal I asked when this test would start. Sharkus replied that there were 2 days left before the test. The girl did not know where her family came from, that it had existed for 20 years. Such a large-scale story. Doesn't this mean that this family will simply expel the girl for 2 days? Seal had different thoughts spinning in her head. The girl began to read these books and realized that she had already known all this for a long time. The time when the House of Basna was founded. Achievements of Justia Basna. Services of Justia Basna, Imperial Family Affairs of Justia Basna. During the reading, it was believed that the Duke's favorite character was himself. The entire page is dedicated to Justice Bessanaya. The girl asked Sharkus how he forgot all this, because it's impossible. Sharkus smiled. He replied that he simply tortured the examiner. The girl was not surprised, because she always ended up somewhere. Sharkus advised her to use the Suri method. The girl was interested in what he did and what his method was. Sharkus replied that everything is simple, she just needs to clone herself. Seal replied that for a maid, it's just a piece of cake. Despite all the failures, the girl still remembered the details of all 24 books. Even though the author called the novella a random box, He was focused on the details. The girl carefully followed the chapters and read each of them. Ciel looked at the book and knew that she knew the main points. These books were full of small details, but the girl thought that she could do it and remember. If we are talking about the history of the Basna family, Ciel is sure that I can learn everything. 2 days later, the maids and knights of the House of Basna were very kind to the girls. They looked after her and did her every whim. All the maids smiled and wished Ciel good luck in the future. One of the housekeepers approached Ciel. In her hands was a small chest. The housekeeper said that it was a gift from Duke Sharkus. When the housekeeper opened a small chest, in Nature's chest there was a bottle of red water. Ciel began to examine the gift from all sides. She was wondering what kind of liquid it was in the bottle. The housekeeper said that this was a medicine that would help the woman die painlessly. Ciel ran to the window and started calling Ferza. She hoped that he was somewhere in this castle. The girl began to ask him for the gold that he promised her. The place for the test was simply beautiful. There were a lot of gold decorations here, just like in an imperial palace. Ciel was not surprised. She expected everything to be at the highest level from the Basna family. When the girl went to the test, there were only 2 people, Justia and the Balls. The girl was completely shocked. She did not expect that the head of the family would appear here. Justia had not yet begun to announce the start of the test. They were waiting for one more person. Ciel thought that they were waiting to start the test completely. The girl was right, it was the queen. She recognized him by his steps. Ferza wished her luck, because she would need luck 100%. Ciel smiled, and it was very nice that Ferza was worried about her and wished her good luck. Justia smiled. He already wanted to quickly start the competition and test the strength of all the girls. Justia wanted to ask the girl a question, who could answer even her daughter. Ciel was worried. His words sounded as if he had already determined the girl's fate. The first question was, name the weakness of the Basna family. The girl immediately began to remember that they had a weakness. The book she read yesterday didn't mention a single weakness. As if they would write about this in a book. After a lot of reasoning, the girl remembered that she should remain silent, even if she knows the answer. This is life-threatening. Ciel remembered the story from the book that it was written that if the weak points of the Basna were shown, then the person becomes an automatic threat to them and the first target for killing. The girl understood that her life would be in danger if she answered very quickly. Ciel remembered that in the second part of the novel, Justia Basna was the main character Reina. However, the Duke's body continued to be preserved even after his death. Reina married Kalana and became empress. She wielded the Cup of Trevia, which can only be wielded by a member of the right family, and used it to dispel the Duke's magic. He mistakenly thought that this cup could not destroy him. Ciel corresponded to the fact that at the moment this is not the weakness of justice, because the Duke is in the presence of the rest of the Basna family. The girl did not know whether this would be the answer, but she decided to answer this question. The girl stood opposite Justia. Her answer was fire. Everyone was shocked by this answer, because most did not even dare to say this answer in order to save their lives. Justia stood up and approached the girl. He asked her with a menacing look what this meant. Ciel began not to show her fear. She asked Justia whether she answered correctly or not. Justia ordered the girl to come closer to him and approach his head. The girl thought that he wanted to hit her. She was afraid to approach him. The girl said that he was behaving very carelessly. No one had spoken to a lawyer like that before. The others who watched this were shocked by the girl's behavior. They held their faces and wanted it to end quickly. Justia stood opposite the girl and took out his sword. He did this to intimidate her and show his superiority over her. Ciel confidently said that she hates being manipulated by Sharkus's dad. Justia smiled with joy. He said that this step completed the task. The girl asked that she really did it. But this was not simple advice, not to let your guard down. Justia continued to smile. He told the girl that he hoped that she would cope with the second test. The girl thought in her head that he was the lonely one who made her go through all this. The second test ended in drinking these poisons. These poisons were brought by the housekeeper, who smiled kindly at everyone. Ciel didn't always understand what she was doing and thought that she should just run away. Although if she does this, she will remain a child forever and will forever hide from the imperial family and the church. But if the Basna nevertheless adopts Ciel, then she will be able to live in safety for some time. The girl understood that this was the path to the wolf's den in order to escape from the tiger. But she had no choice but to go to the wolf's den. The housekeeper kindly said that Ciel could give up if he wanted. The girl raised this as a question. Everyone thought we were going to give up right now. The girl remembered that she was going to become part of the Basna family, that she had to play by their rules. Only in this way would she pass this test. Seal looked at the poison. She looked at the moment when this is her only way to remove the curse and become an adult. The same girl noticed blue water. She realized that it was an antidote. And I decided to take this test and everything at least once to pass this test. She was confident in her character and strength. But on the other hand, this test may turn out to be an even easier pass. So the girl decided to do it. The new worker said that for the first time I made it from horned mushrooms. Seal began to drink this poison. The housekeeper's face showed how worried she was about Seal. At first the girl's taste was very bitter, but she endured it. It tasted like bitter vegetables. It was a disgusting taste. The housekeeper gave Ciel a pill to kill the taste of the past poison from the horned mushrooms. Ciel took this pill with pleasure. This pill strikes the taste of the past poison from the stewed mushrooms. The housekeeper praised the girl for her 5 efforts. There were only 5 poisons left. The girl continued to drink poisons one after another. Everything went even more easily than she expected. But the taste was simply terrible. But the girl did not understand why the poison did not work. The housekeeper said that there was only one poison left. It is made from the tail of a dragon. Such poison can stop a soldier's heart in an instant. Ciel was very glad that the last poison was finally left. After all, it started drinking these terrible, tasteless poisons. She looked at the last poison. It was bright yellow in color. The girl asked herself the question, is it worth drinking this poison if it can stop a soldier's heart? Ciel almost refused when she remembered that it would help remove the curse, so it was worth it. The girl remembered that there was still an antidote in case something went wrong. Ciel covered her mouth with her hands, so that it doesn't end up right on the table. It was just terrible poison and taste. The girl said that something like this should not exist in the world at all. Ciel was very much too shocked by his mortality. She had never drunk anything like this. The worker noticed that the girls were feeling very bad. She ran up to her and asked if everything was fine and if she was okay. The housekeeper asked Ciel if she needed an antidote. Ciel replied that she didn't need anything and that she was fine. She was very glad that she drank everything. Ciel. With a very sweet expression on her face, she asked the housekeeper to give her some candy. The housekeeper happily gave her candy. She was surprised that the girl did not feel nausea or heartburn around her stomach. Ciel replied that she felt a little nauseous, but overall everything was fine. She was very relieved. A day has passed. The housekeepers greeted Ciel and wished her good morning. The girl thanked them for such a greeting, but she understood that she was not officially part of the Basna family yet. But rumors throughout the kingdom that Ciel passed the test have already spread everywhere. Ciel entered the chambers again. Last time she was too scared to look here. Ciel began to look at the paintings. She noticed that she made all the paintings from pure gold. Justius told the girl that he did not call her so that she could admire the interior. Ciel came closer to him. It was the first time she had seen him so close. The girl noticed that his aura was significantly different from the Sharkus's aura. Justia Basena is cursed. This happened when he was 9 years old. The curse that gave him immortality turned the boy into a monster. Justius told Ciel that he liked her. The only ones who did not die after taking these poisons were the sons of Justius. Justice asked the girl directly if she agreed to become the daughter of the monster for the next 3 years. The girl was very worried. It was clear from her gaze and body how she understood the consequences of answering this question. Ciel did not understand what to say to her. She did not expect such a turn of events. The girl asked Justice, "Do you think that if you called me a Basena, then now she is one of them?" Well, since the girls had this opportunity, she promised that she would show this 100-year-old villain that the world is not as simple as it seems to him. Justius smiled. He was looking forward to her answer. He read this girl as special. Justius said that he very much hopes that the girl will give him the answer that he hopes for. Ciel understood that he meant that otherwise Ciel would kill. She understood well why Sharkus was no match for him. The girl thought and decided that she would follow the will of Duke Justice. She was afraid that if she had given a different answer, she would have been deprived of her head. Ciel looked at him and didn't understand why he looked so disappointed. In the end, the girl was the most ordinary child. She sought a comfortable life rather than cherishing pipe dreams. Sharkus approached Ciel and said that calling the Duke by his first name was rude. He explained this to her at the first meeting. "The girl with you is very worried." She hoped that he would not punish her for such a gross mistake. But Justice smiled. He was very glad that she would follow the terms of the contract. Sharkus approached the girl. The girl thought that he was going to praise her for her great services. But he was very cold. Ciel didn't understand why he was hugging her with such an expression on his face. Sharkus said that he knows this since the girl called him a monster. He thought that Ciel was leading a second life. The girl smiled and began to pretend that she didn't understand anything. She said she never called him a monster. Sharkus said that he heard the girl even then tell the queen that he was giving her to the monsters. The girl said that she didn't remember anything. In fact, she remembered everything perfectly. Sharkus thought that this was because the girl behaved very proudly. He thought that she was very proud. Seal became very ashamed of those past words, and she asked Sharkus for forgiveness. Sharkus began to smile. He thought that this was some kind of wonderful answer and a little funny. 4 days have passed since I successfully passed the poison test. And thanks to this, the girl immediately became the adopted daughter of the Basna. She was wondering if the last test was for formality. But at that moment, the girl was interested in only one question. She was looking for the queen because she had not seen him for a long time. The last time she saw him was during the test, although the girl knew that she and the queen lived in the same castle. Seal asked one of the workers to take her to the test. The housekeepers kindly responded well. Seal hoped that she would meet the queen there. She missed him very much. They met only once after the first test. Seal decided to find the queen to tell him about the results of the second exam. The girl overheard the conversation of the housekeepers. One housekeeper said that they needed to take the drinks to the Archduke's room. Another housekeeper replied that he was staying in the guest room. Then Seal realized that the queen was stuck in the domain of the Basna family. The girl went to the guest room to find him. When she arrived, he was no longer here. One of the housekeepers said that she heard that he was now walking in the garden. When Seal came to the garden, he was not here either. The garden was completely empty. She was already starting to get angry. She had walked a lot and couldn't find the queen anywhere. The girl began to think that he was teleporting. Seal approached the other maids and decided to ask them if they had seen the queen, but no one had seen him anywhere. The last exam has arrived. The girl waited for him for a very long time, but on the other hand, she was very glad that this was the last exam. She looked straight ahead and saw in front of her a large black cage from which various eerie sounds were emanating. Seal was very scared. She had already given a lot, but definitely a small black cage. The girl came closer to the cage. She began to look inside. She was wondering if there was something inside, but it was very dark in the cage and nothing was visible. A stranger in a black cloak watched from the side. He was interested in watching Seal's actions. The girl examined this cage carefully, but nothing was visible. But she still had the feeling that this cage was not empty. Well, an acquaintance in a black cloak came up to me and addressed her by name. Seal noticed someone else's energy that was behind her. The girl turned to him and concentrated very hard. She thought that he was a killer. The stranger took off his hood. It turns out it was a queen. He was hiding from her all the time. Seal was very happy. She was very glad to see him at that moment in the exam. The girl was so happy to see him that she accidentally shouted his name very loudly. Because of the large sum, knights came to save the girl. They began to worry very much. They understood that if something happened to the girl, they would answer with their heads. The girl asked for forgiveness and said that everything was fine with her. Seal began to play the fool. She said that her leg just cramped and screamed loudly in pain, but now everything is fine. The knight looked closely from all sides and saw that there was no one here and everything was empty. He asked the girl to call him if something happened. Seal smiled back and said that she would be happy to call him for help. The girl turned her head and began to call the queen. She told him that everything was clear and there was no one else here. Ferza came out from behind his hiding place. The girl told him that he had chosen a not very reliable shelter. She was worried that they might find him. Seal noticed that he was a little upset by her words and said that he tried very well. She noticed that his facial expression was very unusual. She became very interested in what happened. The girl said that the Archduke is like a thief, and she praised the queen for her good disguise. The queen looked at the girl with a very serious look. He told her that she had relaxed very much. Seal pouted about such direct words addressed to her. The girl did not agree with his words. She said that in no case did she think so. The girl believed that the queen could be in big trouble if he was seen at the Basna examination site. The queen replied that she still belonged to the house of the Ekarts, and not the Basna. The girl said that this was the complete truth, but she still could not understand why the queen was here. The girl thought that he was trying to help her, or save her from trouble. It was very touching for her if he was so kind to the girl. Let Seal already drink all the poison. She was touched to the depths of her soul. The queen replied that he didn't know why she was smiling like that, but he knew for sure that it was all in vain. He came here to keep an eye on her. The girl was a little upset. She realized that it was not so easy to understand the Archduke's intentions. Seal asked the queen for candy. For her, candy is the best cure for anxiety. The queen told the girl that she had just been accepted into the family, and she was behaving like a Basna. These words hit Seal's self-esteem. After all, the girl considered them the villains of the century. She was sure that the queen said these words without thinking. The queen reminded the girl that Ikert and Basna were not on the best terms, but now they are cooperating due to pressure from the temple. But after 3 years, they plan to return her to the Ikert estate, for her safety. It was clear from Seal's face how happy she was with this news. The queen said something the complete truth, if the girl refuses because of hatred towards him. Seal did not understand why he was saying this. She was sure that this would definitely not happen. The girl was very happy that she passed the incredibly difficult Duke of Basna test. It was a wonderful path to a comfortable life. The queen admitted that he was thinking about kidnapping Seal. The girl was simply shocked by what she heard. She didn't understand how she could say such frightening things with a calm face. The girl asked if the queen could overcome all the traps of the Basna. It was clear from the queen's face that Seal was underestimating him. He was very offended by such a question. The girl immediately noticed this and began to make excuses and said that he asked this question out of excitement, but he took it as a provocation. Seal asked him a request that when he comes, he should bring shelling cookies. The queen gave her those same cookies. He hoped that she would keep it a secret and would not sell her soul for cookies. The girl was very happy. She loved these shelling cookies very much. Seal divided the cookies in half and decided to share with the queen. She said that she would be sad if she ate these cookies alone. She did this because she believed that the queen was very generous with her. She wants to respond in kind. The queen took this cookie. He was very pleased that someone thought about him. The girl asked the most important question that interested her, where Ferzi was all the time. The girl didn't see him even during the second test. Ferzi calmly replied that he was at the second test and was watching her. The queen was during the second test. He wondered whether she would die from the poison or not. Ferzi replied that he was silently just watching her from the side. Seal was very pleased because just think, he watched the test when the girl was completely ready. The girl thought of telling him that he was incredible or that he was a wonderful archduke. The girl didn't even feel his presence. She wondered when he appeared because even the Basna knights and maids did not notice him. The time came for the third exam. The queen began to leave and wished her luck. The doors opened immediately. It was clear that there were many more people there than at the first and second tests. Justy told the girl that he really wanted to see what other troubles she would do. The girl said that she would definitely die if he continued to expect something like that from her. Seal was the kind of girl who looks at everything superficially. The girl heard a terrible sound. Seal turned back and saw a big, angry wolf in front of her. The girl began to worry very much. She looked at them and thought that they were going to kill her. Justice replied that he does not raise his children in this way. That's what's written on his face. The girl understood that he obviously would not let 3 years pass so easily. She thought he wanted to raise her into a real Basna monster. Seal thought that he wanted to have a child who would fight monsters. The girl said that if she dies, they should give her shelling cookies instead of monetary compensation. Seal promised that if she died, all her money for shelling cookies would go to the church. She was very scared for her life. The girl crossed her arms and began to pray. As a Basna daughter or maid, let me live a long and healthy life. Seal took out a knife and was ready to fight against the terrible and the big wolf. With one movement of his paw, the wolf easily knocked the knife out of Seal's hand. Seal understood that things were bad. She turned to Justice and asked for help. But Justice was an absolutely calm and cold person. He had no reaction to her request. Things were very bad. The wolf's mouth was already near Seal's head. The girl blushed very much. She prayed to be saved. Seal understood that she had no chance against this healthy wolf. But 2 people stood up for her at once. These are queens and sharkies. The girls were very pleased that they immediately stood up for her. Justice ordered them both to get out of the way. He aimed his bow straight at this wolf. This is an order from a member of the imperial family, Mongrel Basna. The queen was not going to get out of the way. He asked Justea not to interfere in his battle, but Justy shot an arrow. The arrow flew past his ear with a distance of millimeters. Justy took Seal in his arms. He told the queen that he never said that he was going to give him the girl. From that moment on, she was already his daughter for 3 years. Seal began to intercede for the queen. She told them not to offend him and pulled Justea by the hair. Justy looked at the girl with an unusual look. And he said that there is one saying, "He who does not know fear does not live long." She describes his situation very accurately. Seal realized that she had done nonsense and began to make excuses that she had a clouding of her mind. She looked at her hand. In her hand there was Justeu's hair. She thought that after this act she would be dead. Ciel decided to ask Justia, "If you pull out his hair, it will grow back. If not, then Ciel has big problems." The girl thought that if his hair grew back, she would pass off this act as an accident. Justia began to say that Ciel was the first person to touch him. The girl was very surprised. It seemed to her that she would now pay for her actions. The girl thought that if everything was so bad, then she would be subjected to great torture. One of the tortures was called the birdie torture. In short, a person is hung from the highest tower of the castle and forced to scream from morning to night for 7 days. This is an excellent option for training the vocal cords. Ciel. She told herself that she needed to get herself together, and there must be a way out. She came up with the idea that she noticed a couple of gray hairs on the Duke. She hugged him very tightly to appease him. The girl was surprised that he continued to hold her, instead of quitting. Justy put her in front of him and asked her not to do that again. The girl was shocked. She thought that she would feel very bad, but it turns out that she escaped a whole week of torture. Sharkus was very surprised by his father's behavior. He never behaved like this. Justice noticed that Sharkus was very surprised and decided to ask why he was so surprised. Ciel took the hair of the Grand Duke of Justice and put it in his pocket. After all, they turned out to be extremely valuable. At one point, the girl realized that she was alive thanks to this trio of villains. One of the men said that unfortunately she didn't pass because she had to cope alone. The girls became interested in who this examiner was. They said that this man was clearly different from the Basna freethinkers. The girl didn't care. The main thing for her was to be smart in the eyes of justice. Justia ordered the guards to seize this worthless administrator and hang him from the top of the tower. Ciel began to feel sorry for him. She considered it too harsh a punishment for him. The girl had a bad feeling in her soul. She felt as if she should have received the punishment and not him. Ciel looked at this man and thought for a long time whether she should lose it or not. She remembered the words of Justice, who said that Basna does not receive anything for nothing. Be that as it may, the girl passed this test. The fear passed, giving way to fatigue. The girl was very tired. She wanted to go to bed quickly. 15 days passed. Ciel was studying etiquette with the maid. The next day she was doing a class on ancient languages. The next day she was studying the theory of alchemy. She was very tired. She had about 6 lessons a week. The rest of the Basna family also worked so hard, the girl asked herself. She yawned very much and wanted to lie down quickly, but she had a lot of work. Although in her mind she was an adult, her body and soul were like a small child. She believed that it was difficult for a small child to cope with such objects. Ciel, it was believed that fortunately, only her body became young. However, her character also underwent slight changes. She was told that this was a side effect of the poison. It seemed to her that she was still shocked by what happened. Ciel read that it was because she was close to death. One day, a one-eyed man who looked like a pirate came to her. He greeted her and introduced himself. His name was Noyce. He heard that she already knew the whole history of the Basna family. The girl was a little embarrassed. She wondered how he knew all this. The man realized that she knew nothing about the imperial family. The Eckhart family is known for its length and quite extensive history. The girl realized that another lecture was waiting for her. Well, for some reason this time, she was a little excited. Noyce began to say what the emperor should do in order for him to prosper. The girl thought for a very long time that this man wanted to tell her the history of the imperial family, but she did not understand why, then ask the question. Ciel had to choose between democratic and authoritarian regimes. The girl thought about his question for a long time and answered that if she were an imperial scientist, she would choose the former. But now she was part of the Basna, and she had no other choice. Ciel decided to answer that the country now needs a strong and stern ruler. He will seize new territories and punish the infidels. Fear makes citizens disciplined and will drive away thoughts of plundering the state treasury. The man added that this is why Miss Ciel preferred authoritarianism. However, this does not necessarily have to be an authoritarian regime or a military dictatorship. The girl did not know whether she made such a choice because of the villains in her environment, but still, a person must decide his own destiny. Ciel came not to change his choice, and she just voiced it. But she was very interested in what kind of regime is needed to check the country. The choice was not an easy one, because they live in a class society, and there will always be dissatisfied people who want to overthrow the government. Moreover, now the girl was under the power of the Basna. To rule the north, inhabited by criminals, you must have something stronger than a code of laws. The men decided to ask one more question. What is needed for people to follow you? The girl answered without hesitation that this is strength and an army. Her answer was very decisive. The man stood up and began to remove the blindfold from his eye. Ciel looked at him much better and finally remembered this man. It was Noir Rouge,